My name is Adrian Mallory. I was 58 when I walked up to my son's house in the best mood I'd had in years. Completely unaware I was about to overhear something that would change everything. I had just driven in from the city, windows down, fresh air cutting through the morning. My brother had finally done something right for once in his life. He left me a Muskoka cottage and $9.7 million. I kept smiling to myself the whole drive. Not because of the money, but because I finally felt like I could help my son, help his family, maybe even fix a few things I'd failed at earlier in life. I parked near the side of the house instead of the front. Didn't want to interrupt anything. That's when I heard voices through the screen door. My son and his in-laws. I stopped. Not intentionally, just something in their tone didn't feel right. I leaned closer. "I'm telling you," my son said. "He doesn't need to know anything." A pause.
Then another voice. His father-in-law. "Just make sure he signs it before he figures out what's missing." I felt my hand tighten around the folder I was carrying. Missing? What were they talking about? My son laughed softly. "Don't worry," he said. "He trusts me too much." I stood frozen, because in that moment, I realized I wasn't walking into a celebration. I was walking into something else entirely. I stayed still outside the side door, didn't move, didn't breathe properly, just listened, because once you hear something like that, you don't interrupt it. Not yet. His father-in-law's voice came again. "Good. The sooner the transfer is done, the cleaner it stays." Transfer. That word landed wrong. Cold. Intentional. My son replied, quieter now. "He's going to question it if he sees the numbers." A short laugh. Not amused, calculated. "Then don't show him the numbers," the older man said. Silence followed. Heavy. Then my son spoke again. "He thinks the cottage is just a gift." Another pause. That's all he needs to think. My chest tightened. Muskoka cottage. That was the inheritance I was supposed to celebrate, the one I'd been planning to tell him about today. And now, it sounded like a tool, not a gift, a cover. I stepped closer to the screen door, slowly, careful not to make noise. Inside, chairs shifted, footsteps, then my son again. "He'll sign anything I ask him to," he said. That sentence hit harder than anything else, because it wasn't about money. It wasn't even about trust. It was about me, being used, without knowing. I stepped back from the door, quietly, because now I understood something I didn't want to believe. I wasn't arriving to share good news. I was arriving, already part of someone else's plan. I didn't go inside, not immediately. I stood by the side of the house, trying to slow my breathing, trying to make sense of what I'd heard, but the words kept repeating. "Don't show him the numbers. He'll sign anything. It stays clean." Clean. That word again. I looked at the folder in my hand, the one I'd brought with me. Bank confirmations, legal transfer documents, proof of inheritance, $9.7 million, and a cottage in Muskoka. I had been excited to show him, to finally have something to give instead of take. Inside, laughter started again. Normal now, like nothing dangerous had just been said. That's what bothered me most, how quickly people return to normal after planning something wrong. I stepped away from the door, walked around the house slowly, each step heavier than the last, trying to decide what kind of father I was walking in as now, victim or witness. Then I heard my son's voice again, closer this time. "He's here early," he said. A pause. Then his father-in-law. "Act normal. Let him lead the conversation." Lead. That word sat differently now, because I realized they weren't just planning something around me. They were planning something with me in the center of it. I stopped walking and made a decision. I wasn't going in blind anymore, not this time. I walked back to the front slowly, not rushed, not emotional, just steady. Because panic is what they expect when they think they're in control. The front door opened before I knocked. My son, smiling, too quickly. "Dad," he said, like nothing was wrong. "You're early." I studied his face, every detail, looking for cracks, nothing obvious. "That's good," he added, stepping aside. "Come in." I did. The house looked normal, too normal. Coffee brewing, light conversation from the kitchen. His wife's parents already seated, waiting, like a meeting already in progress, not a family gathering, a setup. "Good morning," I said calmly. They all responded, warm, controlled, fake. I set the folder on the table. No one looked at it immediately. That was interesting, because if they were innocent, they would have. My son pulled out a chair for me. "Sit," he said. I didn't, not yet. Instead, I looked at him, long enough for him to shift slightly. "You seem nervous," I said. He laughed softly. "No, just busy day." Busy. That word again. His father-in-law leaned forward. "We actually have something to discuss with you," he said. There it was. Finally. I nodded once. "Good," I replied, because now I didn't need to wonder anymore. Whatever they were planning was about to be spoken out loud, and I was finally ready to hear it without pretending. My son slid the folder closer to me. Not mine. A different one. Thicker. Already open. That told me everything I needed. They had been ready before I arrived. "We've been reviewing some things," his father-in-law said carefully. I looked at him. "Things?" I repeated. My son cleared his throat. "Dad, it's just paperwork." Just. That word always comes before something large. I didn't open it yet. I waited. Because people reveal more when they think you're unbothered. His wife came in from the kitchen, coffee cups, smiling, too calm. "We think it's better if everything is organized now," she said. Organized. Not explained, not discussed. Organized. I finally opened the folder, slow, deliberate. First page, my name. Second, a property transfer form. Third, a signed agreement I had never seen. I looked up. "No," I said simply. No emotion, no raise in voice. Just a stop. My son blinked. "Dad, it's not just anything," I interrupted. Silence. His father-in-law leaned back, uncomfortable now, because calm refusals are harder to control than anger. I closed the folder, pushed it back. "Explain it properly," I said. And for the first time, no one rushed to answer, because now they realized I had seen enough to know this wasn't a discussion. It was a negotiation I didn't agree to be part of. The room didn't move for a few seconds. Not even the coffee machine sound felt normal anymore. My son finally spoke. "Dad, it's just a restructure," he said carefully. I looked at him. "Of what?" I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation said more than words. His father-in-law stepped in quickly. "Assets," he said. "Future planning, protection." Protection. Interesting word. Used a lot by people who take more than they give. I nodded once, then opened the folder again. Flipped deeper, and there it was. A clause. Clean. Legal. Cold. "If approval is granted, full control of inherited assets will be reassigned." I stopped reading. Looked up. "Reassigned to who?" I asked quietly. Silence. Longer this time. My son shifted in his chair. "Dad, it's temporary." "No," I said, not louder, just final, the kind of no that doesn't need support. His wife spoke from the side. "We're trying to help you manage things," she said. I almost smiled. "Manage me?" I asked. That landed wrong. I could feel it. Because now the tone had shifted. From planning to exposure. I leaned back slightly. And for the first time that morning, they weren't looking at me like family anymore. They were looking at me like a problem they weren't ready to fully explain. My son exhaled sharply. "Dad, you're making this bigger than it is," he said. I didn't respond immediately, just studied him. Really looked. Not the son I raised. The version sitting in front of me. Careful. Rehearsed. Bigger than what? I asked quietly. His father-in-law leaned forward again. Listen, he said, trying to regain control. You were going to give him everything anyway. This just ensures it's handled properly. Handled. That word again. Always used when someone else is doing the taking. I tapped the folder once. So you forged my intention, I said calmly. Silence. My son shook his head quickly. It's not like that. But he didn't look at me when he said it. That mattered more than anything. I stood up slowly. No rush, no aggression, just movement. Because once clarity arrives, sitting becomes unnecessary. I came here to tell you about a gift, I said. My voice stayed even. And you turned it into a transfer plan. No one spoke. Not even the father-in-law now. Because the difference was clear. A gift is trust. A transfer is control. I looked at my son one more time. You didn't just plan this, I said quietly. You planned me. And that's when the room finally stopped pretending it was anything else. No one denied it. That was the worst part. The silence answered for them. My son stood up slowly. Dad, we were going to tell you, he said. I nodded once. After I signed it, I replied. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue, because I was right. His father-in-law exhaled, trying to soften it. It was about stability, he said. You're not exactly... He stopped himself, but it was already out. Not exactly what? Not exactly capable. Not exactly trusted. Not exactly needed. I looked at him, calm. You misjudged me, I said quietly. My son stepped forward. Dad, please. I held up my hand, not angry, just final. Sit down, I said. He froze, then sat. I picked up my folder, closed it, slowly, carefully. I came here today, I said, to share something good. A pause, then I continued. But what I found instead was honesty. I looked at all of them, one by one. No signatures, I added. No transfers. Nothing. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was empty, because they realized something too late. They hadn't just been caught planning something. They had been caught revealing who they are, and I no longer needed to argue with any of it. I simply turned, walked out, and left the folder behind, as proof they would have to live with.